Armored Bear Productions. Welcome to Not Safe for Wizards, an actual play 5th edition D&D podcast. Hi, this is a prologue episode for the Not Safe for Wizards podcast. In this episode, Pete Stein will be interviewing... Oh, he's interviewing me, the DM. Let's get started.
Hi, friends. You probably recognize me from the world-renowned, internationally listened to Not Safe for Wizards actual play D&D podcast. I'm Peter Stein. I'm the voice of Orion. Today, we've got a little something special. We've done some character interviews that you should have all listened to every one of at this point. No excuses. Today, we're taking it right up to the top, and we're going to do a real hard-hitting interview with DM Joe Hawk. Say hi, Joe.
Hey there, guys.
So, we wanted to get a better feel for what it's like to be on the other side of the table, what your experience is like as a DM and having to put up with everybody. We know it can be a lot sometimes. We're all very sorry. Not really. But, you know, officially, we'll pretend we are.
I appreciate that, officially.
So how long have you been involved with D&D in general as a whole? How long has it been a part of your life?
So I'm hazy on the actual when. I know I was under 10.
I'm not going to date you or anything, but that's a long time.
Yeah, no. So I'm 8 or 9 years old. My brother comes home from middle school, and he, in his gifted English class, I think, is introduced to the Endless Quest books and Dungeons and Dragons, and is telling me about this crazy game where you can be like, you know, the comic book heroes that we loved, or the Hobbit or Lord of the Rings stuff. And not too long after that, the red box came into the house. The basic edition of D&D came into the house, and I remember he was like, "We're gonna play this." I remember on the side of it said like for ages 10 and up.
Oh, that's too mature for you.
And I said to him, "Steven, am I allowed to play this?" And he was like, "The D&D police won't come." So it's 30 plus years of Dungeons and Dragons in some way.
So what you're saying is at this point we're safely past the statute of limitations for the D&D police to show up.
I would like to hope so, that
because you've made a public confession now.
I did, but I'm hoping because of the whole TSR to Wizards of the Coast change, maybe I somehow fell through.
There's a loophole.
Yeah,
we'll get lawyers.
Okay,
it'll be fine.
Okay,
it'll be fine.
All right,
we're not going to hum any licensed music again. I will sooner or later. I can't help myself. But I think you're okay on this one.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about your process as a DM.
So my process as a DM it's changed from as I've grown in my skills. So when I started out, I was a terrible railroadie. Build a dungeon, you couldn't go backwards. All those doors and stuff fell apart, or hallways collapsed. I think when we were in the 4th edition campaign, I was plot heavy, but I was getting more improvisational, so that I would have things ready for you guys, and I would have things ready for when you made a right turn when I was expecting a left.
We are very good at not taking your turns.
Yeah, so with this campaign and what I've been doing with the other campaigns I'm running right now, I've done a bit of prep work. I've kind of built a world, and I have sort of a meta plot in mind, but I'm really going after where you guys want to take the plot, where you guys want to take the story. So I've been lucky in that for the most part you guys have picked up the hooks that I was putting out there. But I always kind of am ready to, on the fly, adjust so that if you went one way and not the other, there's something there. So for this world, for this game, it's totally a homebrewed world, from the top down. And so it's been just, I know the world. For the most part, I know the world. You guys have added locations and important peoples and important factions as through your backstories or through the role play. So there's a lot of the meat that's there is because you guys have provided it to me in some way or the other. It's nicely kind of, I can stick things on to the framework of what I've been doing, what I'd had planned.
What do you think is like the optimum balance between like storytelling, role-playing elements versus more action-oriented rolling dice kind of elements?
I can only speak for this group, but I know I have this campaign group is pretty well stocked with role players, with storytellers, with people who want to collaborate with the story. So I know I can get away with like 3, 4, maybe 5 sessions where the only dice you may be rolling is a persuasion or an insight or something like that. But I know, I agree with how this edition's set up with having the 3 pillars of play, the social interactions, combat encounters, and exploration. And I think as we've played out things, I've tried to put those in. But I love the story moments. I love the story moments where it's not me, where it's you guys doing it. I mean, you guys in the sessions we've done, I mean, there have been times when you and Kayla have just kind of grabbed hold of things and had interactions between your characters that all I could do is sit back and watch and be mesmerized and be proud that, yes, that you guys coming up with all this, but it's kind of like I've put this world together that has given you guys a room that you could take these dramatic risks. You could take these moments to really just feel your characters and interact in such a way that, like, all I did was sit down and shut up for 15 minutes and just let you guys go, and it was beautiful. And there have been multiple times where character to character interactions have taken up a large chunk of a session, and it's done it in a way that it's better than anything I could have planned.
I agree. As you know, we go back a ways, and you know that I'm much more into the roleplay aspects. I know Kayla also is very big into the roleplay aspects of gaming, and I've considered myself very, very lucky to be in this group and to have great moments where I realize that sometimes I'm afraid maybe I'm too much of a method player. I'm afraid maybe I'm getting a little bit too much into these things, but I think the results are really good, and I hope other people agree as well. I'm glad you enjoy it too.
I'm honestly I'm looking forward to getting out those episodes where you guys do all of the interacting, all of the talking, and I'm minimal, just to see the caliber of role play. I've talked with other DMs about it, like, friends of mine, and I'll be like, I had a session where, I was quiet for 15 minutes and the characters just talk to each other about their in-character issues, and it's like, I mean, and I'm not tooting my own horn, I'm not blowing smoke up your guys' rear ends.
No, please do both of those things.
Okay, but the other DM's like I would love to get that sort of buy-in from my players, or I'd love to get that sort of role play out of my players, and it's like, I don't understand how you don't, because as a DM, I'm not writing a novel. I'm not writing a story. I've got ideas and I've got this world I created, but it's nothing until you guys get involved in it and you start, whether you're going, oh, this is great, or hey, if I take a monkey wrench to that, what will happen? So.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I've personally found it to be a funny thing to be in a group, and a wonderful thing to be in a group where we have definitely experienced moments where we, as the players, are crying in a moment, and sometimes I realize I have to gasp because I've been holding my breath in a moment of tension, and I don't really know where that came from. And I have always enjoyed, too, these moments where I realize that, like, I'm doing something really dumb right now that I know is a stupid thing, but, man, it's an in-character thing.
Right. And it's really easy to say, like, for some folks who when they're playing their characters and they're trying to be disruptive, or they'll always give the trite, well, it's what my character would do. But I can honestly say, when you guys would say if you guys ever said something about your play being that's something my character would do, it honestly is. And it's not, because none of you guys don't have any of the bad habits that I'm talking about, robbing from each other and that sort of things. But you guys, like, if Orion is going to go out and challenge somebody to single combat, it's in Orion's character, it's nothing's like being done where it's like, you make suboptimal decisions all the time, which I'll call you out even when it came up to rolling your character.
Sometimes in life people aren't born with real high stats, but they still have to be a person.
No, and that's true, and that's where I love that you did that, where you rolled it up, and I'm looking at it, and I think it was like, Pete, if you want to reroll, you
definitely encouraged me to not go with those stats,
but you did, and you're finding a way to play him that plays those stats, but you're trying to play him in a way that he's trying to be the best paladin of Adar that he can.
For what that's worth.
Yeah.
So, in your years of playing D&D and assorted other games, how, for you personally, how do you compare the experience of being a player versus being a DM?
Being a player, I think, is, I want to say it's easier, but it's also, I don't know. I love doing both. And that's why I am a player in every other week campaign right now as well. And one of the other campaigns I co-DM with Kayla. I also kind of play helper characters in it, so that way I can at least get a little bit of play in while I'm helping her with DMing. I love being a player because I don't have to worry about too much outside of what my character is doing. So right now in the campaign I'm playing a Dragonborn monk who's kind of this entertainer background. He's like a professional wrestler-esque. Mm-hmm. So all I have to do when I sit down to play is I focus on being Aventus. I get to be him, and But on the other hand, I do miss, though, kind of knowing what's going on behind the scenes and what's the tinkering, and I know where, like, when that DM is putting out hooks, I kind of know that where the hooks are, and I think I'm probably more malleable to take hooks than I might have been before I really took on DMing. Being a DM, I mean, in the 30 plus years of DMing or playing D&D, initially I was a player probably for the first couple years. My older brother ran the games. I was the player, and then I want to say probably when second edition came out, so that's 1987, 89. I don't remember particularly. Second edition comes out, and at that point I'm like 12, 13 years old. So it's where I'm actually able to like kind of get my head wrapped around being a DM. So I would start doing DMing for him at times, and ran like a little campaign with him. Didn't again, like I said at the beginning, not a good DM, but it was really kind of learning to tell a story. But I've always been really wanting to have the players be the story, not me have some sort of overarching. And if I've got to kind of give credit to anybody on that, my older brother, when he was DMing me in our early campaigns, was always very focused on what character. Those were a lot of one-on-one games. For a lot of reasons, it was usually just him and I. And then later on, when I got into high school and I got involved with a group with some really good friends of mine, it was also very much character driven, although there was a little more hung on like the overall plot, but the characters were still driving forces behind it, and that was okay. But I like to focus on the character as a DM, but I like doing both equally. I just find myself DMing more often than not, and it's really just more of, I like world building, I like adventure design, I like kind of being the lead push in a story.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
would you say that you have particular influences that you draw inspiration from when you are world building?
That's a good question, because so with like the last campaign with the Imperium, I was going with kind of a quasi historical thing in mind. Like I wanted to build an empire like the Holy Roman Empire, mm-hmm. where there was an emperor, but it wasn't really a hereditary thing. It's something that a council would come together to elect, and have it be as fractious as what the Holy Roman Empire was. So, mm-hmm. But then I put it through the lens of 4th edition D&D. I took some of the meta plot from, the what do they call that? The Dawn War, Points of Light, whatever they were calling their base campaign setting. And I kind of used some of that as fodder for it. For this one, I don't know if it has. I was really trying to come up with a way to make a world that still would fit in sort of that quasi-medieval fantasy trope, but having grown over the years and kind of opening myself up to the inclusivity and diversity that's needed in this game, I was like, having the world be formed by 3 sister siblings, and then having one of those deities become gender fluid. It was just, I was looking for ways to, how can I change the standard, in the beginning, and make it so that you can put as diverse a player set and as diverse a character set into it as possible. And then my idea, like for the rest of it, was just sort of, you guys are in a metropolis type city, a metropolitan city that had been the Rome of this world. But unlike, say, Rome after the Empire fell, this city didn't really get sacked and destroyed. This city sort of just divested itself of its holdings for the most part, and is really more focused on business and mercantile stuff. And it's kind of like I don't know, Grimsby, the city you guys are adventuring out of, is kind of a weird kind of medieval, kind of almost Renaissance, almost even modern, where it's, it doesn't really preoccupy itself with the expansion of its territories because it's done that. It's more of it wants to do whatever it can to maintain peace for trade. So, but I mean, I've read, big huge fan of all the Dragonlance novels, all the Weiss and Hickman ones especially, Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, pretty much any fantasy literature I've consumed, and I know the tropes, and so it's just trying to tweak them, trying to make them more interesting. The table I'm going to be running, I've got players who've been playing for decades. I've got players who are brand new. So it's like, for the players who've been playing for forever, how can I change it just enough so it doesn't feel like you're in...
It always feels a little fresh.
Yeah. I wanted to add a new twist to it, so it's not like, oh, this is bog standard fantasy world.
Right.
Yeah.
In a prior interview with one of your players, you specifically stated not wanting to foment an addition more, but really, which one's your favorite? No, don't answer that. That was a trap. You almost fell for it.
I almost did.
I saw it. You were starting to mouth the words, oh, I'm not going to say what you were mouthing. I know what mine is. It doesn't matter. In your experience, though, over the years, you've played a number of different actual systems outside of D&D, yeah?
Yeah.
What are your feelings on some of the other systems that you've played that other people might be interested in checking out outside of traditional D&D?
Outside traditional D&D, I love Supers games.
I also.
The only problem I ever have with Supers games is sometimes the system gets in the way of being able to do what you see in the comic books. Or now, since we live in a glorious age where you can see your favorite superheroes on screen, it's but I've had a ton of fun playing Champions and Heroes Unlimited, the Marvel, the TSR Marvel superheroes.
One of my favorite broken systems. Totally
a mess. I remember for years trying to figure out how the magic system worked in it.
It doesn't.
Yeah. But it was fun. And it was fun, like, I didn't want to play as Spider-Man or Wolverine or any of the... I wanted to make my own characters who maybe bump into Spider-Man and Wolverine. It was an interesting system. On my bookshelf, you'll see I have both first and second edition of West End Games Star Wars role-playing, the D6.
Familiar territory for me also.
A fun game.
A lot of D6s.
A lot of D6s, but it was an interesting game. Kind of was prepping for being able to come up like the whole idea of like difficulty classes for skill checks that were kind of missing from earlier editions of D&D where you didn't actually have, say, skills. Love that. Paranoia was a fun game. I think I played second edition Paranoia. I think also West End Games, and that was a fun game where like, yeah, you're just gonna goof around, and if you're playing again, it's a little bit of solo play, but a couple times I play with a friend or two, and you're always on the edge of deciding whether or not you're gonna off your friend's character because obviously they are a commie and or traitor,
just like in real life.
And friend computer requires that you kill traitors and commies. Trying to think, there are some other interesting games that I tried to run. One game, and a real good friend of mine will, if he listens to this, will remember us spending probably 3 or 4 weekends in a row trying to figure out how to play Middle Earth role-playing game, which I believe was put out by the folks behind Rolemaster. And it was incomprehensible to figure out how to even make a character. And I've talked to people both in person and online about this game, and that is the collective was this game was way too advanced for the time. I never got into too many. So one of the the most fun I've ever had playing in a role-playing game, Car Wars.
Mm-hmm.
My brother and I, we had it was like, honest to God, felt like it was like a pamphlet-sized set of rules. Like it was just this little tiny thing. You unfolded it, and we basically would photocopy the car thing, so you would know like how many pieces of armor or whatever, or hit points your different parts of your car had. I think we got a later edition or a copy where like they actually like then gave you stuff for like being the driver, like for like when you got out of the car. That was a fun game. So also tried my hand at Shadowrun not too long ago.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, I hope you had a good DM because I suspect you did not.
No. We both game masters we had for it were excellent. I have to say it was a lot of build up for a system that just I could not grok. And I don't know if it was because I decided to try to play a spellcaster, and that spellcasting system felt a little clunky, and nothing was worse than I roll really well on my, spell roll, but then I have to roll really well on my withstand the drain, and I'd end up knocking myself out after casting a spell.
I think in general it also helps to have a DM, a game master who has read the book and the rules, and I can't speak for who was game mastering that Shadowrun game, who may or may not be the person who's speaking right now, who may or may not have read large portions of the book. Look, I wrote a story, okay?
No, and the story was fun. It was, and I've talked with some folks. I do this RPG escape thing they do. I've done it twice now at the local game store. Brings down luminaries like Ken Hite, and Darcy Ross was down this year, and the guys from Alligator Alley Publishing are there, and just talking with folks there about games. The Shadowrun Magic system really kind of gets the, ooh, you tried that?
That makes me feel a little bit better.
Yeah, no. It I mean, like I watched like other folks who are street samurais and whatever else, get to do really cool stuff and not have to then worry about knocking themselves out.
I mean, it seems very telling of me that I, as a paladin, do not know half of how to use my magic, and in that whole Shadowrun game, you kept trying to use magic, and I was like, I don't know, do whatever, it's fine. Rolls, I don't have time for numbers, come on. It probably worked. What did you roll? Was it above 10? It's probably fine. It's my fluid style of game mastering. On the subject of the styles in which we run games, I know that amongst the people listening, I am getting my kids to start listening. Might be a mistake. Might get Department of Children and Family called on me for letting them listen to inappropriate things. But my older son in particular, and both my sons are teenagers, for those of you out there who don't know. They're both teenage boys who are starting to delve into playing and into gaming D&D specifically outside of games that I am running with friends at school for the first time. That said, and knowing that there are people listening who are at the point of learning to dabble in D&D in general, what advice do you have for people who may be newer to this kind of tabletop role-playing that are interested in DMing or game mastering games? What advice do you think would be helpful for them?
So to a new DM, my first thing would be is you don't need to know all the rules. You need to know a good number of them, but you don't need to know everything. So if you listen to episodes that will come after this, I've been DMing this system now for a few years. I was doing some work, some DMing at my previous employer during lunchtime. So I'm a game mastery person. Not like I look for ways to game the system, but I like to know how things work. And I also have an incredible memory, as Kayla will probably attest to. But I know most of the rules really well, but I still get stuff wrong all the time. So you don't have to know all the rules. What you do have to do, though, is when you get to a moment in a game where someone's asking, can I do this? If you can find the rule quickly, find it quickly. If it takes more than a couple seconds, a couple minutes to find it, make a ruling. After the game, at a break, whatever, then find it. And then, if you were wrong, be ready to admit that you were wrong. And kind of go, okay, this is what the rule is, and that way everybody learns. If you're starting with world building, I would say, and I kind of work a little opposite this a little bit, but start small. Especially if the people you're playing with are brand new. Start small. Start the village, start the town, start wherever they're in. Develop that first. And you don't have to have 100 shops named or 1,000 NPCs known. Just like, okay, what are a couple of the major inns and taverns? Because that's where your party is going to hang out. Who are a couple shopkeepers that they're going to interact with? Figure out who's running the show, who's the mayor, who's the prince, the king, the duke, whatever that runs that town. And then, depending upon the story you're building, then you have kind of the NPCs that are related to that story that you can put in there. And then, and then you have your adventure location, so, you again, you're starting small. We kind of started small with the campaign. And now the world's kind of blooming a little bit more and a little bit more. You really only need to build what the players might go to next. But the caveat is, be prepared that they may not go where you expect them to go. So have something on the side that if they decide they're not going to go to the to the mines, that they want to go check out the haunted woods, you have something for the haunted woods set up too. But be confident. Don't be arrogant. Listen to your players. And by that I don't mean just like, having them help drive the story, but like, if they come up with an idea about what they think is going on in the world and it's not exactly what you had planned, guess what? What they came up with might actually be what's going on in the world, and you need to steal that and bring that in. If they think there might be a secret message or a secret door or a secret cult or a secret whatever, well, who says there isn't? If they say their character came from a city to the far south that's besieged by trolls, and you didn't have a city to the far south being besieged by trolls, but guess what? Now you do, and you have something that you can use later on. No, don't send first level characters to go rescue a town besieged by trolls, because you're going to have another party of first level characters trying to defend said city because the trolls are going to massacre them. Encounter building. Try to use the information that's in the Dungeon Master's Guide or what's in Xanathar's Guide for building balanced encounters, but there's nothing wrong with building an encounter that is gonzo crazy above what level your players' characters are, because those characters always have the option to, one, not try to fight things and talk their way out of it.
Maybe you've never met players.
No, I've met a few players who, let's talk to it. Or they run. Running is an option. It's a viable option.
I'm not going to lie, I've definitely had a few situations where I've been running a game and have had to say to them, please don't fight this. please don't fight this. No, don't. No, you're fighting it. No, why aren't you listening to me? You're fighting it.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to ever tell them. I don't ever tell players this is what you should be doing in this situation. I mean, I'm going to telegraph. So if you're coming up to a cavern in the mountains, I'm going to tell you that all along the road going up, there are these scorched remains of well armored, well equipped beings. Telegraphing that. They're
going to get a lot of experience points for something.
I mean, there's always that, but I'm trying to say, that there's an adult red dragon in that cavern, and you need to look at where you are in your level progression and whether or not you feel that your group is capable of handling that situation.
So, I don't want to create any kind of spoiler situation, but is there anything in particular that you want to tease as something that's coming in terms of the story of the game that is coming? Like, hey, listen out, because there's going to be some big fill in the blank kind of stuff.
I don't know if I want to tease out anything like that, but it's just the world is, when we start out, the world appears to be pretty balanced, things are pretty stable. As when I'm going to do a prologue episode where I'm going to kind of go through the creation story and then kind of give this is the world at the beginning of the campaign description. But the world is kind of, the world's at peace for the most part. But there are rumblings of things, and not everything is as it appears. And I think there's going to be a lot of expect the unexpected. I think that's what I'm gonna leave that at. Just expect the unexpected.
So, not to play favorites, but that was the answer. That was the answer, because the rest of the question was, of all of your favorite, of all of your characters or players, which one of them named Orion is your favorite? Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I like Orion. But not that one though.
Borean.
The other.
Dorian. The other ones.
I like the sleepy cousin Snorian.
Well, Joe, thank you for taking the time to give everybody a little bit of a pulling back of the curtain on Not Safe for Wizards.
No, it was my pleasure. I'm glad to let you guys all see behind the DM screen.
And we are looking forward to hearing feedback and hearing what everybody thinks as we roll out this story.
Yep, you got it. So, for Pete and myself, I am Joseph the DM.
And I'm Pete, and I play Orion.
Thanks. Hi there, this is Joseph the DM. I hope you're enjoying the Not Safe for Wizards podcast so far. If you are, I'd love to ask you to do a couple things to help build the show up. One, go to Apple Podcasts and leave us a review. Preferably 5-star, but hey, I leave that up to you. Second, follow us on social media. The links to our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter are in the show notes. And thirdly, share it with your friends. Let them know about the podcast and have them take a listen. We look forward to entertaining you for a long time to come. Thanks. Have a great rest of your day. Hi, thanks for listening to that episode of Not Safe for Wizards here on YouTube. If you would give us a thumbs up for a like, hit that subscribe button, and of course hit the notifications bell. That way you'll always know when Not Safe for Wizards is putting up a new episode. Thanks.